Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy. What's up, my people? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday show.
Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today.
Today, our badass guest is Anthony Dyer, aka Uncle Tito, 16th Special Operations Squadron, 21 years of service, completed service as a tech sergeant. He penned the book Moonchild, The Roots and Wings of a U.S. Air Force Combat Special Missions Aviator, which you can pick up on Amazon and at trademarkermedia.com. You can also catch Anthony on all social channels, handles to follow the show. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, man. Super excited. You know, it's different. I know we've worked together and, you know, our special operations groups have worked together in capacities in the past, but I wasn't super familiar with the 16th Special Operations Squadron. And I want to get into that a little bit. But the first question I ask everybody is, you know, you served 21 years, you retired from active duty. That's a long career. What was your exit like? What was your retirement getting out like in the transition?
Man, honestly, the retirement, the getting out was the roughest part of the whole ride. You know, I had a realization there, like, you know, when you're out process, like MPF, the personnel is flat, whatever you guys call it. But, you know, you realize there's not even a door handle on the other side of that door, right? So, meaning like, you know, you can't really get back in, you know, and I had to, you know, come to the point where I got over myself, I guess you'd say, and realize that this machine goes on. You know, what we did does matter, you know, and it's important. At the end of the day, man, there's always a new fight and a new challenge and a new occupation, new life. So.
Yeah. Well, I know for most guys getting out, transition's pretty difficult. You go through a pretty rough patch because you're looking for that meaning and purpose. And, you know, it takes some guys a long time to actually find that meaning and purpose. So what has really helped you through your transition to find meaning and purpose again? Or are you still on that path?
Yeah. So I'm you know, it's gotten a lot better. You know, at that point where I, you know, sort of lost my identity when I, you know, I'd hit the button and I saw the end, you know, my whole why has changed, I guess now. And, you know, my why back then was, you know, to provide that close air support on the gunship for you guys, you know, and, you know, once that part of that zeal's over, right, that feeling of importance is over, you know, the new mission now is being the best dad I could be, the best father I could be, the best author I could be, you know. So it's done a 180. It's just different mission, just same attitude, you know. So
yeah. Did you happen to go into a dark place, or did you just keep it together like most of us don't?
Yeah. I definitely, I did not keep it together. You know, I did my last trip to Iraq was on my 20th anniversary, you know, and then, man, it was so slow, you know, which I get it, you know, if we're not working, it's, you know, a good thing sometimes, but, you know, I hit the button when I got back. And once I hit that button, man, I saw the, you know, sense of relevance, you know, you know, the sense of identity, my whole why, my whole reason for being, that all I've known for, you know, my adult life, if you will, is gone. Right. So that was a harsh reality, man. So what happened was, you know, I started, to be honest with you, drinking like at least a pint a night just to go to sleep, man, which turned into more. And, you know, I was in this vicious cycle, man, of like, you know, feeling sorry for myself, you know, being dumb, drinking that much to go to sleep and, you know, waking up next morning hungover to go to work and then, you know, right back to it at night, you know. So it was a bad place to be in. And, you know, I finally get to the realization that, especially after my wife, you know, talked to me, the ultimatum, right? Like it's either, you know, me or your daughter or the alcohol and you know, no brainer there. And she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I chose my family. So.
Super stoked that you have, man, because it's definitely, there's other roads that people take. And it's tough, man. I also experienced that myself. You know, this is, a lot of people know me, you know, sober now, and they also knew me as a, you know, drinking buddy and all that jazz. But, you know, when you do have that self-realization of like, oh, I really do have an issue here. And you're man enough or woman enough to step up and say, I'm done. What a beautiful thing, man. I'm super, super stoked for you, dude. In fact, of all the conversation we're going to have, that's probably the most incredible thing about you, man, is that you fought through it, you passed it, you beat it, and you can be that father, that husband that you wanted to be, man. So
Awesome. I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. And, I may have mentioned this sort of a little bit before, but like, I had these words come the other day, this quote, I wish I would have had when I wrote the book. Sometimes there's a spiritual side to this, right? And like God or whatever you believe in, that puts you in isolation before elevation, man. And I'm still hopefully trying to climb that ladder, still in the climb, man. So
isolation before elevation. That's a beautiful thing, man. Yeah, a buddy of mine said something similar once upon a time. He was a naval aviator, and he said that you can't, I'm going to butcher the wording, but you can't see the light until you have grown your deep, dark roots, something like that. So I'll put it
100%.
out in this thread when we actually blast this video out
Awesome.
so it's accurate. But it's the truth, man. Like, if you haven't been through anything hard before, it's very difficult to actually understand where you come from and to grow from it. So
100%.
well, you look good.
Thank you,
Everything's
appreciate it.
sober now and everything's solid. And you just papered a book called Moonchild, which I can't wait to hear all about. So let's start off before we even get into the book. Why did you write this book? What was going through your head? How long has the process been? Kind of the start of it.
Yeah. So when I decided to finally get help through the USOCOM has the Preservation of the Force and Family program, and part of that is a psychologist, and I end up seeing this lady, and I'm on literally my last year in, man, and just went in there with a chip on my shoulder. What does she know about this and that? But she gave me the cliche analogy of like, well, you wouldn't call a dentist to fix your car, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a whirl, and I didn't want medicine, so she did what she called prolonged exposure treatment, and what that is basically the idea of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Like right now, sort of telling the story, right? And I couldn't do that my 20th year in the Air Force, and basically I wrote it out. I mean, man, I wrote it out and wrote it out and wrote it out so I could just say it, and then she's like, man, you should tell your story. There's these things called storytellers on base, all this different stuff, and I said no 100 times, and it's the quiet professional, was beating my head for 21 years, right? And now I'm trying to relay these words to the world, but I think that there's a point to that the reason for that. And basically when I got out and the dust settled, and I had all this stuff memorized in my mind, this sort of Charlotte's Web of emotional words, and throw it on paper, try to make sense of it, man. And 2 decades of war, and I was like, maybe someone can get help, if or would get help if they read this story, right? And that's, if they do, man, if one person seeks help, that's a blessing. And then the second reason would be, to paint a picture to the rest of America, like this is what goes on when you're sleeping, man. Like, as well as anybody, like, if we don't tell these stories, whether it's being an author, having a podcast platform, these stories die in the sand, and I refuse to let that happen, man.
It's true, man, because we are the next generation's recruiters. I mean, a recruiting station, in my opinion, and I've heard a lot of war stories about it, they suck. They're in there to do their job, fill their numbers, whether it's a Twilight tour or
100%.
whatever the case may be of how they got there. It's not really in the best interest of that person going in the door. And so we're the ones who have to share these experiences with the proper communication. Like, we can't just go out and blab our mouths about everything, but
Correct, yeah.
with the right amount of decree on doing that, we can help people. So
100%.
So Moonchild, okay, how long did it take to write the book?
It's so I had a lot of the words, like I said, in my mind, and what I sort of wrote about, some of the stuff I told the counselor, and basically from pen to paper, like when, I'd get these thoughts about what to put in there, I would literally start out, scratch sheet of paper, whatever sort of M&M at napkin, whatever I had, near the bedstand, and, and wake up in the morning and try to make sense of it. And then, once I got everything together, I reached out to actually a LinkedIn, search for like, hey, like a editor for, military veteran stuff like that. And Holly McKay was a war journalist, and she's actually first person I reached out to, and she responded within minutes, man. And next thing you know, I have this this conversation, sort of my idea for this book and everything. And she's like, yeah, and basically she was the editor, so there was a lot of back and forth, with Word documents. Hey, what does this mean? And what does this mean? And there was a lot of things like getting the acronyms out of my head, right? Because this is going to the rest of the world, and to sort of make it make sense, in simple terms and my own words. But she gave my words teeth, I'll say that. And then she recommended a publisher, and I would say pen to paper to book in hand would be about 7 months, which is relatively fast, but it is a relatively short read. So
Okay. Wow. That's pretty cool, man. I mean, same thing for me. As I actually hired a ghostwriter because that was one of my weakest subjects in the world, was writing. anything English related, whatever. It took me a couple of years to put mine together, and it's not a super thick book. So I know what goes into it. It's a lot of work, but a lot of passion. So you call it Moonchild. Why'd you name it Moonchild?
Yeah, so I've my whole life, man, I've been sort of drawn to the moon. My dad told me I was born on a full moon, April 7th of 82. And I actually looked it up. I think it was like 99 point something percent aluminum, and all that. And, I thought about it after the fact, like later flying, in the gunship missions, we mostly come out at night, um, and with that, if there was like 100% aluminum, I loved it, man. Because with MVGs, man, you could see all the terrain, all the ground to ground tracer fire, all the ground to air tracer fire. It was all like basically as a lighthouse for me. You know what I mean? And if there is some symbology there with it too. If you think about the moon, man, you can't have that bright light without some darkness, right? Without some adversity, man. So, and on the darkest nights, that's when that moon burns the brightest for me. So,
It's awesome, man. What a great name for it. The Roots and Wings of the U.S. Air Force Combat Special Missions Aviator. So dig into that. What's the book about?
yeah. So it starts out in deep in Appalachia, where I was born there, and really small town called Silva. It's about an hour west of Asheville, if you ever been out there. But basically the sense of community, all the morals, values that was Appalachia specific to me, right, growing up and passed down from my grandfather, stuff like that. And that was I guess my molding clay, my base, and then I'm at a crossroads here about 10 years in the the Air Force. I didn't start out as a aero gunner or small. um, I'm on leave at a pizza joint, and I look out, man, and I'm with some friends, and I see those same cracks in the road, and what I'm getting at there is like the same people doing the same thing, and what is this brief mortal life if not the pursuit of legacy, right? Like, I wanted to leave cracks no more. I don't want to leave craters, man, and that's what that gunship gave me the opportunity to do, and the Air Force gave me the wings, and so it is possible, believe it or not, to have your roots and your wings, and that's sort of the overall theme of perseverance for this whole story. So.
Is this a story from your childhood all the way up, like a memoir, or is it more military centric?
Yeah, it's very very much more military centric. The childhood part, there's a couple chapters in there, and the close friends I still keep up with, and things like that or Appalachian specific. Like, you ever heard of like water dowsing, stuff like that? Like, you get the two rods and they cross together. Anyways, this thing that are very specific to that area that you're taught, growing up, and stuff like that, and how to fish, and everybody knew everybody, and I did have one flight with a friend on a helicopter over Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And I knew at that moment, that aviation in some way, shape or form would be a big part of my life, and, once I actually took my first flight, man, and I never looked back to that point.
Digging into the book, and being on the 16th Special Operations Squadron, what was your role assignment during that time at the squadron?
Yeah, so I was back then it was called aerial gunner. It was a 1 Alpha 7 AFSC, or MOS as some people call it. Basically you were the weapons expert of the crew, and the what was awesome about the 16th, man, was like we flew on the same tail numbers 6972, Gravedigger, Wicked Wanda, call signs like that, and the same ones that flew in Vietnam, man, I got to fly on, right? And like you had the same the 40 mil and the 105, and what it is the Air Force, during Vietnam, they basically took a 40 mil Bofors cannon, an anti-aircraft gun, actually the Navy used, and then a 105, like a tank, if you will, on the side of this cargo platform, right? And turn it into a gunship, man. And where a gunner makes his money in that world would be like recognizing your weapons. What kind of malfunction do I have, and that analysis, knowing your cycle of operations, being the weapons expert of back then a 13-man crew. And I know that sounds simple enough, man, but you could imagine, like, guys getting lit up on the ground, and you can't figure out what's wrong with your gun. It's a bad place to be in. So we always took pride in being the weapons go-to guys, and man, it's after that first shoot, I realized my whole why, and I got to do more than an hour and a half flight for my country than I had done my whole life before.
It's legit. There's nothing like when we are in trouble on the ground and calling in for air support, and then you hear it and you see it. It's just it's like freedom opening up from the sky, because it's like, yeah, this is cool. And that's another big thing. It's like there's so many components to war. It's not just one group of warfighters on the deck. There's so many different things in play to actually enable us to do what we do. And you guys are one of the big pieces of that puzzle. So,
Yeah, appreciate it. And that's something, someone asked me if it lost its zeal, I guess is what they were trying to ask me. And like, it never really did, man. I mean, there's something about that moment, right? Like we're at a, 5-7 mile orbit around the op area, right? And like, you guys call us in overhead, man. And just, but basically noise signature, right? And the SEALs are always real good about, recognizing our noise signature and where to put us until it's game time, right? And, once you get caught in the overhead, man, and, you see them, the bee's nest pissed off after you guys breach and they start running, at that point, they know it's over, man. And just hear those words, clear to engage, man. That was, never lost its zeal for me. And, I love that part of the job, and I realized that, younger in my career, man, not everybody can be an operator, right? And I'm definitely an aviator, not an operator. And, I realized that what I can do is get that cast out, and take pride in that, so that was my why all those years, man.
That's legit, though. I mean, you're right. Everybody has their forte in the military, and you find your pocket. I mean, you didn't initially join to be in that environment, and then you made it there. Even though you said there was always going to be something in your life related to aviation. For me, like, I have no interest in being a pilot. I don't trust myself to fly a plane. I certainly don't trust myself to fly a plane with other people. It's just one of those funny things. I've actually jumped out of more aircraft than I've actually landed in. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fun.
That's a good way to look at it. I never thought about that, man. Yeah.
So, digging into the book, obviously, we're going to have everybody go check it out on Amazon and, buy it, because a lot of people are looking for new, interesting books. And obviously, this is hot. It's fresh off the press. So we want to get people directed to it. What would you say in the book your favorite part of the story is? I mean, everybody's going to have their piece that they're excited to read, and I'm sure you know what that might be. But what was your favorite part of the story?
My favorite part is, my first, I guess, actual time I had been like trusted with someone's best friend's life. Is the way I look at it. My first shoot there, is northeastern Afghanistan there, if I remember right. And, just that moment of like, man, like I wanted to serve my country at the highest capacity that I could. And God and Air Force and family gave me that opportunity, man. And, just that moment of relevance, like everything I'd done in my life at that point, it didn't matter. I wasn't a father yet. I wasn't a husband yet. And, I lived for those moments, and, there was letters all around that squadron where like, man, thank you guys for your rounds. I got to see my baby girl. And you don't think about that till you get older, till you look at them letters when you have a family, and it's like, man, that was an awesome responsibility. And I loved it. But at the other end of that, what's the worst experience in that book, when I went to Castevac, I flew in the HA-60 Payhawk for about 5 years of my career there in the 41st Rescue Squadron, it was pretty nasty Castevac there, June 8th of 2018, I believe it was. And, East Africa, I'll just say that. And, we saw the best side of that job that day and the worst side, meaning, we saved, 5 eagles, right? And one eagle, when we got back, passed away on the operating table, unfortunately. And that stays with you, man. It's not what you do in aviation that haunts you, it's what you don't do. So that did stick with me. I'd be lying if it didn't, so.
How do you deal with that stuff?
Yeah, talking about it, this helps. Believe it or not, this even being on this podcast helps, man. Like my biggest fear, I think I mentioned, is talking in front of a lot of people, man. And this gets me over that, and I'm talking about these uncomfortable things that maybe someone else has struggled with too, and can see that light, man. And that accountability mirror every night when I look at it, man. Like I can either say like I made the world a better place today, or I didn't do anything. That
Well,
choice
that's a big. Go ahead.
No, yeah,
Sorry about
and that choice is it's a harsh reality when the days where I didn't do my job completely right. I don't feel like I did enough, right? So, but the ones that you did, that's a victory, man.
Well, I mean, this is a big part of why you wrote this book, right? Is because you said, even if when we talked off cam, even if it helps one person,
100%.
My darkness and my story, if it resonates with somebody and it changes their trajectory, I mean, that's the hope for all of us, which I know for a fact it will, because it's amazing how this isn't over. This fight to help our brothers and sisters out is not over. And it's stabilized at the highest level it possibly could. I mean, it's terrible. It's the 22. We don't even know the statistic that's real today of how many suicides there are. But out of the suicides, which is awful, there's a hell of a lot more people that are just struggling. And so it is up to us to step up and help them. And if it's your words or your story or my words, we got to keep doing this stuff. You're right, man. And just talking it out with brothers. I mean, we could say something and, you know how it goes when you get with the guys. You're just talking about old stories, usually about me screwing something up, and it makes you laugh and it feels real good.
Yeah, that's I think getting help in like these stories, like to see it's okay to get help, right? That's a big stigma at one point in my career was, man, if you went to mental health, right, like they're going to take me off the flying schedule, or some guys' cases like a do not arm or whatever their commander may give them, and that, like, man, like realizing like we're all very, well, at least in my, like, very normal men and women doing very abnormal things, right? And like you're going to hit that point, and you got to take that tactical knee and realize that I do need help. I did have a drinking problem. I was a raging alcoholic, right? And that was the worst part of my life. And did some things I'm not proud of. But at the end of the day, man, I decided to wake up and, just be a better man, with one foot in front of the other till I get it right.
Yeah, man. Not familiar with the rank structure of the Air Force. A tech sergeant is what? What rank?
It's a E6, so it's not senior intel. Yeah.
You got to be an E6 all the way through 21 years.
Yeah, dude, it was crazy, man, because I made E6 relatively fast, and then it was like that rooftop, that master sergeant, man, I couldn't, for whatever reason, I didn't get it, and it was all on me, it's nobody else's fault but mine. But but there was a level of like, man, like, because when guys make rank a lot, and you'll see it a lot in the officer corps, but like they'll get out of these flying positions and they may get 1 or 2 flights a month, and so there was a lot of ebbs and flows with that. But at the end of the day, man, it's I think there's 300 smiles total or air gunners, so it was competitive, but I'm still thankful for the opportunity to just to know these people.
I think it's great, man. I mean, when I joined the SEAL teams, some of our older guys, told me that being in the E5 slot was the best place to be because you get to be an operator and have to worry about leadership and all that crap. And some of these guys lasted 16 years as an E5 before they actually bumped up or whatever it may be. And it's like, you can't do that today. And it sucks because when you get to those higher levels, you don't operate anymore. So
yeah, and I think
that's legit.
And there was a fun aspect to that too, man. Because I partied hard, man. I know we were talking about partying with the Brits a little bit, man. That's a very eye opening experience, And basically, like, man, I'd go to TDY 30 days of Red Flag Vegas. You sort of see this thing build up to this problem I had in the end, But man, I drank all my per diem money away, you name it, man. And it was fun when it was for the right reasons, not alone and shit like that. Yeah.
I mean, you're just having the time of your life, though. You're getting paid to do a super cool job. I always said this because I was told that there was like an 85% divorce rate in the SEAL team. So I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that because I was totally irresponsible. Like I was not in any level of maturity to be bringing somebody else into my life and into this world. So I stayed single. And so therefore I could just live for the brotherhood, go out and party, no restrictions. And it was awesome, super selfish, but awesome. I don't regret a day of it though.
Oh yeah. It's like, I was telling my wife this, I was like, I was that guy. And like, I realized that, I've been to some great places and I've been to some terrible places, good people, terrible people. And, but at the end of the day, like I wouldn't trade one for the other, like it's all part of that experience of being an airman, being an aviator, and it's all, if my life was sunny and 75 every day, right? There was no adversity and stuff like that. Like how boring would that be? What's the point,
Yeah. From the book, are you actually doing speaking tours? Are you going out and talking to people?
Yeah. So I did. The first one was that City Lights bookstore in my hometown bookstore, a little small thing, and a lot more people showed up than what I thought, which was good, And I did a book signing there, and then talked to all the veterans after, about different things and different branches. It was awesome, man, from every branch, I think. And then donated that money to this place called the Equinox Ranch, and what that place is a place in North Carolina in the mountains there, and it's for veterans to help them heal, and there's fly fishing events, camping, all kinds of stuff in this cabin up on the Appalachians there. And highly recommend it. But yeah, I took that money and donated it towards that, man. And, just to hear the other veteran stories and how we're all really tied together in these 2 decades of war, right? And how at one point or another, we all know somebody that knows us, right?
For sure. That's cool though, to have your first, speech in the local bookstore where you're at. I mean, that's cool.
It was one of the hardest things I've had to do, man, because like I'm seeing people have a scene and like I don't know, have you ever like been in a situation where you haven't seen someone in like, 25 years now, and then you're like, man, they're there, they got your book in hand, right? And you're playing catch up, and then it made me nervous, man, honestly, dude. But like once I got it done, man, I felt a lot better about it, and just like
Yeah,
to get these words out there and to see it, hopefully impact someone's life. So.
I get it, man. I mean, when I was on a speaking tour after the book release for, I don't know, about a year and a half, and I got asked to speak at the middle school that I went to middle school at, and I was like, sure, yeah, no problem. I've been speaking a bunch, and I was really comfortable. And then I walk into the middle school, and all this emotion came back of like, I got picked on a little bit out there, and I just didn't feel comfortable in my skin, and all that stuff rushed back into me, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And on top of that, I've been speaking to adults, corporations, all this stuff, and now I'm speaking to young kids in a middle school. So how do I
Yeah.
keep their attention? What do I say? And so there was a lot to that. And then of course my teacher, this is great. A teacher of mine who was in elementary school had bumped up to middle school, but she was my teacher in elementary school. And when she came up to me, she's like, Ryan Parrott. And I look at her, I'm like, holy cow. Hey, I can't believe it. It's been 30 years since I had seen her. And she looked exactly the same. I couldn't believe it. She gives me a big old hug, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe you're here. And I had the biggest crush on her growing up. And I finally told her, I was like, man, I had the biggest crush on you. She's like, oh, that's so sweet. So yeah, a lot of emotion.
But man, I'm glad you brought that up. I want to talk about. There's a situation in the book there. Like, I'm not going to say what grade I was in, but like everybody back home at least asked me about it. And there was this teacher, and she's like, the cliche, like, you're never going to make a living, looking out a window, man. And like, we had like pods in my elementary school, so there was barely any windows, and everybody's like, were you mad at her? I'm like, no, like, cause at the end of the day, man, like she was basically saying, you're not going to make it, you're not going to get Appalachia. You're just going to do what everybody else does, right? Kick the can down the road. And that I thought about that every night looking out that gunship, man. Like, man, if that lady could see what this view is like, you know what I mean? And just, not make her eat her words, but thank her for just, giving me that fire and that, a level of pissed off I was to do something,
Yeah. That's incredible how somebody else's ego and their anger can send somebody else in an awesome trajectory.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that happened to a lot of us, man. I mean, I had a teacher in school who told my parents that I would never amount to anything. And, it's quite funny. Just like, how are you going to know what somebody can do? And so,
yeah, and it's some people try to play God and see the future of someone, man. And, and I think there's an awesome argument. I forgot who, I think it's Andrew Bustamante. He said something about like, I look at it as empathy, but like, the argument of like, perception versus, what's the word I'm looking for? Perception versus perspective. And like, basically, like my perception of someone, like it's at face value. It doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? But if I look at situations and problems like through their perspective, through their lens, then man, maybe I will understand, and we'll get on the same page and get something done, So there was sort of that type thing going on, throughout my career as well. So,
how big is your book? I haven't seen it yet with my own hands and eyes.
Yeah. So honestly, it's a quick read. It's a small book, probably 156 pages. It's a Sunday read. A lot of people call it 2 hours. There's a lot of the feedback I get is like it'll make you laugh and cry within the same hour. So I'll take that, man. There's a lot of dick and fart jokes in there, man. So
I love it. I love it, man. Well, knowing that you're on the speaking and you want to do more speeches,
I do
want to do more speeches?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. Yeah, I'm gonna get into some more podcasts, man, and just keep on, getting better.
Yeah, man. Well, sounds to me like you have proven those people in Appalachia wrong, because you have definitely gone out and done something for the nation. It's funny how they say you're not going to amount to something, and you go serve the United States of America for 21 years. That's a middle finger to everybody who doubted you whatsoever.
Yeah,
you really have.
Yeah, it definitely was a motivator. I'll say that, man. That fire that burns, and I'm sure you had a similar one. And man, that'll get you through a lot of hard times, man. Just like I refuse to settle for mediocrity, whatever the case may be. And, I want to make a difference for this nation, man. And like I said, the highest capacity, at least I could, and, a few thousand feet at a time, man. So,
What do you like to do outside of being on the speaking tour and writing books? Like, what is your jam these days?
so I like basketball. I'm from North Carolina there. I'm a big Duke fan. I haven't kept up with it in a while, but I like fishing, especially like, when I do go home, me and my dad hit up the, either Tuckasegee or Nantahala rivers, man. It's a beautiful, like if I want to go fishing back home, I just walk to the river, right? Like it's awesome in that aspect. And then my family, man, that's my rock, man. My three F's is my everything now. My faith, family, and friends, And then fourth,
That's legit.
definitely freedom. So
Yeah, that's a good one. What are you fishing for these days?
so when I go back home, me and my dad go for native brown trout. And out here, man, there's catfish, there's muskie, there's a few rainbows and like speckled trout here in New Mexico, but it's nothing like the Appalachians there, where there's a stream on every corner and different rivers, lakes, you name it. So,
Yeah, right on, man. You gotta. So, I mean, 21 years in the military, and then obviously being in aviation. Do you still have any ties to aviation? Are you still doing any work with flight today, or did you just shut it all down and leave it behind?
no, I still try to keep a presence there. And what's cool about my job now is the flight simulators, basically these big, egg shaped things that have these struts and they move just like the aircraft, and it's all virtual reality, man. It's pretty crazy. And what I'll do is like today, for example, I got an AC-130 scenario, like where I'll build out this scenario, right, and like all virtual reality, have like you guys on the ground, have an enemy, have threats, have different things to engage and stuff like that, danger close type shoots. And, the idea is to like take those lessons that we've had in the past and then, put them in this virtual reality. And, the best case scenario would be like, one of the air crew gets back and like, man, like, thank you. That scenario really helped me out downrange, and that's what it's all about, man. See the light bulb come on, and, these future aviators.
So this is for military. This is not for civilian.
Yeah, it's for military. So I still get to see some of the same guys I flew with in the 16th, and I also do the MCJ, like the low level 130s and stuff like that, as well as the U-28 platform, which is like ISR type.
Wow, it's interesting. I wouldn't have known what you were talking about. I mean, I've obviously heard of simulators, but a very dear friend and a neighbor of ours is he was a pilot in the Navy, and then now he's a pilot for Southwest Airlines, flies the big planes. And he took us over to the simulators and got my kids up in one of them. And holy crap, that's a ton of work. Like, it's no big deal. And I'm like freaking out. And of course, I crashed the plane within like 5 seconds of taking the stick. And it's just not for me.
Yeah, it's
But
amazing.
amazing.
It takes a while to get used to just the visuals in it and stuff, and but like what's crazy is like your 3-9 line of the aircraft, that's what you can see, and everything else, like, so it's you can't say, okay, is there a threat behind me? So you have to put like everything in front of them, and stuff like that. And basically these split second decisions and things like hey, did you get the GFC's initials for the danger close shoes, stuff like that, but you basically, there's a certain amount of stress that as well as anybody, you can't create in training that is like real combat, right? And getting those rounds out that quick for you guys, and basically you put them through it. So when it happens, man, they realize like, I've been here before. This isn't my first 5-line. This isn't my first defensive maneuver, EP, whatever the case may be. And that's the fruit and all that.
Nice. That's awesome, man. Is there a story that you did not put in the book that meant something to you that you want to share?
So let me think about this for a second. Man, that's a very good question. Yeah, I would say probably my last talk with my grandfather on my mom's side, as Mihafi and Scott Irish there, and he would always tell me, man, like, there's you can't you really take any of this with you, and he's like, do you remember like your great 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 grandfather's name? And I don't, and I realize now what he's saying, man, is like, there is no hearse behind a U-Haul, man. You can't take nothing with you. All you can leave behind is a good memory for your bros and bras, right? Like, that's it, man. And he always wanted me to make a difference and told me I would make a difference. And he gave me the best gift at all. He believed in me. So
Yeah. Amazing, man. It's incredible sound advice too. We do get caught up in the new spectacle, the new special, sexy, glamorous thing or whatever. And you're like, well, when I die, I was just having this conversation with my dad the other day. It's like, he's getting older now. He's not super old, but he's getting older, and he's, mortality's starting to kick in where he's realizing this stuff. And I'm like, well, what are you so worried about? And he's like, well, I mean, that sucks. When you die, it's over. I said, but you're not going to know. Like, your body won't care anymore. You'll be off to heaven. And it's just, it's not a struggle for you anymore. So you got to stop worrying about something that it won't matter. It's good.
Yeah,
So,
and you know what's crazy, man? Like I've been thinking a lot about, you mentioned mortality and like, the world's oldest question, right? Is where do we go when we die? And sort of my next book, I'm throwing that in there a little bit. Like, personally, I don't believe like we really know what consciousness is, and all that stuff that you could dive into. But to me, there is a spiritual side to all this, man. There's if there's a good, there's an evil, and it's a yin and yang, man. It's all around us. So, and as a nation, man, if you look now, we're split more than ever, and just ask that, if anything, for our veterans, just come together and be decent people, right? So
yes,
yeah.
100%. So you're going to write another book?
I am, yeah. It's sort of in progress right now, and kicking around some different ideas, and I think may have mentioned this earlier to you, but what I really want to do is create this hub, this platform, which is in progress, and basically we're all veterans. I believe every veteran has a story, and no matter how big or small you may think it's important to everyone, and to basically get it published and edited for through a nonprofit for either free or for a really really discounted rate, and still working the the legalities, everything like that on that, but when it comes out, I'll definitely let you know, man.
That's awesome, man. I love it. You're going to go thick, big one with this next book, or you're going to be about same size?
Yeah. From some of the feedback I got, man, I'm gonna have to do longer, man. So I'm gonna make it, probably 100 pages longer, something like that.
Did you have to go through the Pentagon approval for your book?
No, I just, I went into it and I talked to the publisher, and he did a really good job of keeping me out of trouble with that sort of stuff. And I was like, hey, man, this is what I can talk about, and I can't talk about this, this, and this, and this, and he understood that, what I was getting at with a lot of that. And I didn't put anything on there on that level, It's a very, very,
Nice,
very basic gunship close air support type missions.
Legit, dude. I can't wait to get it, man. This is an area that I don't know a whole lot about. I've never lived your world. We've worked together, but I've never lived that world. So I'm going to be really excited to scoop up a copy and dig in. And we're going to push this out to everybody that we know and let them know, like, hey, here's a whole nother world. You're going to get a lot of sales off of this for sure.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And in the end, I know I've mentioned it, man, but like I can't say it enough. Like you guys were the reason with it. If we're being honest, like you guys kicking doors down there, man. If you guys are doing that, usually we were overhead, man. And that was an awesome responsibility, and it was an honor just to be in USOCOM, period, man.
Dude, there's nothing like having you guys overhead. And if there was a point where we had something going on or follow on targets or whatever, and there was a longer period of time than planned, and you guys had to go refuel, that felt all kinds of shitty. We were like,
Yeah,
we're really out there right now. So beyond grateful for what you guys do.
Thank you. We're grateful for you, man. The nation's grateful for, like I said, I put in the book, man, the with my shoulder on it type of guys, man. That was all you, and that was our reason. So
it's awesome, man. Well, we're going to push the book out, Moonchild, The Roots and Wings of the U.S. Air Force Combat Special Missions Aviator. You can scoop up a copy at Amazon, and you can also look at it at traitmarkermedia.com. Before we push all this stuff out in the links and that after the show, I want to ask you one simple question I ask everybody is, who is your hero and why?
My hero is my grandfather. I mentioned he never gave up on me, man. Those words, they stick with you, man. And his spirit, man, I still feel it very much so, and he wanted me to realize whatever you do in life, man, always persevere.
Tell us about your grandfather. What was his name?
His name was William E. Haffey, man. He was a big, tall, Scott-Irish guy, man. And he, man, he would work at a pig farm his whole life, man, until he was 87. I think he quit working at like 80. He was like that old doing that stuff, man. Sort of cliche Appalachian there, but yeah, man, he was big on his faith, big on his family, and he was huge on his freedom.
You imagine that's where you get it from. That's
100%.
awesome.
Yeah. I love America, man. Love North Carolina. And I love the fact I got the privilege to serve with the best, so.
Yeah. Any chance that you're going to move back to North Carolina, or you're staying in New Mexico?
I'll probably stay in New Mexico, we got my wife's from the Navajo Nation up near Gallup, and, it's about 6 hours away, so it's close enough, I would say that. And then, you got Albuquerque, and I still got a lot of friends up there and a lot of friends on base here still, man. So it's my home away from home from now, I'll say that.
Nice, dude. Well, in close, I would love to know, like, what other things you have going on, future projects, goals, like, what does that look like for you in the next year?
Yeah. So next year, definitely get this this hub, this website up, and for anybody who wants to put a book out there and get another book of my own out there, man, and just help tell people stories, man, and paint a picture for America. Like, this is truly what goes on when you're sleeping. We're very normal men and women, like I said, doing very abnormal, uncommon things for that freedom, right? And I think it's important as a nation, like, they don't lose sight of that, and I don't lose sight of that. We all don't lose sight of that, right? And that's about it, man.
Legit, brother. Well, if you are out there and you're listening to this, obviously go scoop up a copy of the book. If you have heard and listened to this whole thing and you have ideas for Anthony, or should we say Uncle Tito, let's fact track real quick. Let's talk about Uncle Tito, because we didn't even touch on that, and I told you I wanted to hear about that. Where did you get Uncle Tito from?
Yeah, so and what's unique about, usually in like, especially AFSOC, we don't do call signs, right? And I went to the Jolly Greens when I went to the Payfawk helicopters there in the 41st, and they do call signs. I found out very fast. So what we would do the spin up training down at Avon Park, Florida, and like what would happen, usually you were like hard crewed with your your PJs. You had like your 4 air crew and then like 3 PJs on your bird, and that was the guys you would deploy with, like 2 weeks, right? Get to know each other, icebreakers, do AIEs, fast ropes, all that stuff, and shoot 360 firing fans with a 50 cal. Anyways, long story short, man, on your off days, you were like you were helping out the SEER guys, and like playing the opposing forces, the bad guys, and sometimes the survivor. And what would happen was, like, if we checked all of our DLOs and stuff like that, like the aircrew did, then we would basically have what was coming down to downtime on the range there. And I was with these SEER guys and a couple of other SMAs and a couple other pilots that I remember. But long story short, there was this guy, man, and like he iced me. Remember the ice, like you smearing off ice, like they see it and you have to get on one knee and drink it. So that he did that, but he did that to me with like a big, a big one, right? Like a 32-ounce one, right? And so what I tried to get him back, but I hit it all over the SEER guy's truck, everybody's truck, and I ended up getting myself. And the more drunk I got, I was like, what an unfortunate chain of events. So I kept icing myself, right? And I just smashed, and so that's sort of, wacky, but they were like, it stands for Tony ices Tony only. And usually these call signs were not for something good or something like that. Yeah, man, I've been caught it all, man. I told you about jumping on Moabs before, and the slump buster, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's legit, man. That's the same thing. I mean, you're right. The nicknames usually come from something we either screwed up or, something that it was out of your control, but you got it anyway. That's how I got my nickname. Was got blown up and flying in the air, so they gave me Birdman. So, but it's cool. It's part of your identity now. I mean, it's part of your story. And I think most people in the country don't even know my first name. They just call me Birdman. And it's totally cool.
That's a good one, though, man. I got to talk to you about that one day and hear the whole story, so.
For sure. Well, everybody, go check out Anthony Dyer's new book, and it's called Moonchild, The Roots and Wings of the U.S. Air Force Combat Special Missions Aviator. Pick it up on Amazon, and tell us what you think. We'll be sharing out all his links and everything after the show. And, brother, thank you for being on the show and sharing your story. Thank you for petting your story so that the next generation can learn and hear your wisdom. And most importantly, just thanks for serving our country, man. That's a long time to do it. And, we wouldn't have this country without guys like you. So we really appreciate that.
Brother, it's been a privilege and an honor, man, just to be on your show, man. I appreciate all you guys, man. And thank you for what you did for our country as well.
Absolutely, brother. All right. Well, this will be part 1 of part 2, because we'll have you back on when the next book drops.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. Looking forward to it.
Frogman